You're watching Telecom TV and welcome to our special program on the Open RAN tipping point, moving from early adopter to early majority. I'm Guy Daniels, and during the next hour we will highlight the transformative journey of virtual and Open RAN technology, exploring the pivotal roles played by industry leaders Intel, Wind River and Dell Technologies. Why a tipping point? Because we are starting to see a convergence of key factors such as cutting-edge hardware that now meets virtualization demands, robust partnerships amongst vendors and CSPs, and essential field experiences that are shaping strategic development. During this program, we are going to discuss the lessons learned, partnerships forged, and innovations that are driving this incredible shift in the telecoms landscape. But we also want to hear from you. So any questions you have on Open RAN, then please send them in using the Q&A form on this website. We'll have time to address questions towards the end of the show. To set the scene, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Clarence Reynolds. Early this week, he held a discussion on the current state of the industry and the importance of open ecosystems, standards, certifications, and partnerships.
Thanks, Guy. Open RAN has reached a tipping point in telecom marked by a convergence of factors. Here to explore why this moment is significant and the driving forces behind it are Cristina Rodriguez, VP of Intel's Network and Edge Group and GM of its Wireless Access Network division, and Paul Miller, Chief Technology Officer at Wind River. Welcome to you both. Cristina, I want to start with you. The tipping point is defined as the point at which a series of small changes or incidents become significant enough to cause a larger, more important change. What are your thoughts on the path that Open RAN has taken to get here and why we've reached this pivotal moment?
Well, first of all, there was a industry-wide realization that we needed a more modern network architecture. An architecture that would allow us to fulfill all the ambitions and all the use cases that we have in mind and that we want to offer. We needed a more modern network that will allow to have a wide ecosystem participation that lower the barrier of entry for new participants, and that is built in a common, open, full programmable platform based on general purpose processor, no purpose-built solutions, and that will unleash all the possibilities of innovation. So I would say that's number one. Number two is we needed the technology that supported that ambitions, right? And after many years of investing and creating new solutions, we're at a point where we can truly have a fully software-defined network. We can run the entire workload, the entire RAN workload on the CPUs and in a server architecture, server-based network architecture that can process the entire RAN workload all the way to layer one, fully virtualized. That was the second one. And then the third one, I would say, is where we are in this journey, in this process. The operators, both brownfield, greenfield, across the entire world, started with proof of concept, lab trials, field trials, and now we're at a point where they are deploying at a scale, commercially at a scale, thousands of virtual cell sites, making it very clear that we are in a point of no return in this journey, and making very clear the benefits of this open software-defined network.
And Cristina, how do you see either business or technology pressures influencing this shift?
Yeah, great question. I would say there are three things that are putting pressure and encouraging this movement. Number one, 5G. We have been deploying 5G for a while now, for a few years now. There have been significant deployment made, but now it's time to monetize that investment. And there is an intention, obviously, to make that monetization happen not only in the public side, in the public network, but also private network, spanning enterprise and industry traditional market, new market, right? And we need that modern network that I was talking about before to deliver new services, reduce the cost, just both in capex and opex, and then just in general unleash the limitless potential of innovation. And again, that can only be done to the full potential with an open software-defined, software upgradable network. So that I would say was the first pressure. Second one is our energy focus. Right? It is an industry mission. It is in every operator top priority to reduce their footprint, their energy footprints. We all know that the telecom industry is one of the most power intense from the consumption point of view industries in the planet, and the operators are looking for solutions to reduce again that power consumption. And with the open software defined network, you have a lot more possibilities of innovation, of it to optimize that energy efficiency and start breaking our energy curve. And then lastly, I would say artificial intelligence. We all know AI will be everywhere, from edge to cloud to network, everywhere. And every AI workload will be accessible in all the different vertical solutions. But the thing with RAN is you need an AI solution that matches the stringent performance per watt requirements that we have in the RAN in the RAN space. We need something that can be deployed, a solution, a capability that can be deployed in the virtual DU. That you don't have to go all the way to the data center, and especially if once you are in the VDU, you cannot have somebody consuming enormous amount of power, having external power-hungry components. So you want to have that capability again within the CPU, in the same server architecture, within the same open and software-defined network.
We know some of how we got here, Paul, but what happens next? What do you see as the larger, more important changes that we're moving into?
Thanks, Clarence. And, I think it's, as we talk about a tipping point event, it's really worth talking briefly about how we got here. And Intel and Wind River have been working together for many, many years, even predating the existence of cloud native technology that's now used extensively in virtualizing radio access network, and before Kubernetes, before 2014 even. And Intel has kind of emerged as a de facto standard for the processor platforms, the accelerator technologies, the network interface technologies that we use in our open source software. At the same time, though, as we looked at the legacy solutions for virtualizing technology, we realized that existing approaches weren't going to be sufficient. When you look at a radio access network, the need to support a geo-distributed architecture where you have tens of thousands of sites that are coming together as one virtualized cloud, even though they're fully geo-distributed, that required a different approach. And so Intel and Wind River co-founded an open source initiative that Cristina was referencing called Starling X, and that's hosted in the Open Infrastructure Foundation. And this is where we upstream all of this technology that we're talking about here. The enablement of Open RAN, virtualized RAN, and the high-scale deployments is all actually open source, done in an open community environment. Now, as we started working through that, we started seeing some amazing successes. Early adopters such as Verizon have now gotten to tens of thousands of nodes deployed, running in excess of 6 nines high performance. We've developed teams that have an understanding of how to operationalize these systems in the network. And as you'll see later on in this tipping point event, we have customers now talking to KPIs that exceed the performance of legacy RAN solutions, that edge sites can be deployed astonishingly at 90% less manpower time than the legacy approaches. And then finally, as we move forward into the future, we're starting to see the ecosystem really come together. The RAN providers, the infrastructure providers, the hardware systems providers such as Dell are coming together to perform integration prior to bringing it into the customer environment. And this is having a massive impact on operations TCO, lowering that for the customer, and lowering their effort and increasing their ease of adoption of these technologies. So really getting to that level where we've had this incredible amount of investment over many, many years in the Open RAN community, in the hardware architectures, in the virtualization technologies, and in the RAN applications. And then finally getting into deployment. Now, for multiple years of deployment at very, very high scale, we're truly at a tipping point where this technology can be adopted, it can be deployed. Now, to answer your question, as we move forward into the future, we've got some really exciting things happening. The amount of automation that's required in these disaggregated networks to really improve operations efficiency is driving AI and advanced automation capabilities into these platforms to really help solve these problems. At Mobile World Congress shortly, we'll be demonstrating some of those things in our booth, and we encourage you to stop by and see that. We'll also see, as Cristina mentioned, new investments in power efficiency, in particular using the capabilities of Intel Xeon processors to manipulate dynamically PNC states in combination with the VDU workload, allows the radio access network application to dynamically manage the power consumption of the underlying platforms. And we're getting to a place where this is dramatically lower cost and more efficient as a fully software-defined architecture that's deployed in edge networks. So very excited about the future and very excited that we've finally reached a point where mass adoption of this technology can be taken forward in a very safe manner.
Thank you, Cristina and Paul, for setting the scene. Now back to you, Guy, for further discussion on the future of the Open RAN landscape.
Thank you, Clarence. Well, I'm delighted to say that Cristina and Paul have joined us live today, along with Manish Singh, CTO of the Telecom Systems business for Dell Technologies. Hello, everyone. Really good to see you all again. Thanks for joining us. We're going to feature a number of short presentations on Open RAN, but first I wanted to follow up on what was said in the discussion with Clarence. Manish, if I could start with you. We heard there that we're at this point where the ecosystem's converging, with software and hardware vendors pre-integrating their solutions. So tell me more about Dell Technologies' involvement here and why you're partnering with Intel and Wind River.
Yeah, thank you, Guy. First of all, thanks for having me. We obviously have been partnering very closely with Intel, with Wind River, to continue to advance the adoption and scaling of the Open RAN solutions. Just to start with, Cristina talked about, bringing in the right server form factors and open platform. First and foremost, we had to get the right platform in place, because when we are talking Open RAN, we are talking about deployments far out, not in the data center, at the cell sites, and on the edges of the network. So we started with a new platform called XR8000. It's a sled-based design, designed for harsh environmentals, NEPS compliance, smaller form factor, et cetera, check all the boxes to bring the right server form factor that is suited for RAN deployments. Layered on top of it, then, we put the automation framework. So you can go and automate. And I think Paul touched on it, the importance of automation, especially when you are deploying infrastructure that's out and about. And how do you automate that and make sure not only day zero and day one, but day two, continuous lifecycle management. So we introduced infrastructure automation software. And case in point, just to share with you, one of our customers, Dish Networks, they used it, and they have achieved the velocity of deploying 1,000 cell sites a week. So there is proof point of the velocity that can be achieved. But then we went further ahead and worked with Wind River very closely to create infrastructure block, which is really bringing our server platforms with Intel's Sapphire Rapids inside and Wind River's CAS and the Dell Automation Software Suite, all tightly integrated, pre-validated, delivered to the customer's factory integrated, and having a unified support model where Dell fronts is providing the support, and we work very closely with Wind River to provide all levels of support that's needed. The objective is simplify, automate, create the pathways for scaling all these solutions, and it does require bringing the whole ecosystem together. The last thing I'll just say is, while we deliver the infrastructure block factory integrated with the unified support model, we also put an OTEL, our Open Telecom Ecosystem Lab, in place, which is where we convene and bring broader ecosystem into the mix, including the RAN workloads and the operator partners, where we do extensive validation, integration, performance testing, and more, and not do that once, but do it on a continuous basis with applying the CI/CD principle. So it's really bringing all of that together, and the end result is making it easier for operators to adopt, deploy, and clearly we are at a tipping point where we're seeing the acceleration of these adoptions and deployments.
Great. Thank you very much, Manish. And we're going to hear obviously a lot more about the various solutions and approaches later in this program. But Cristina, let me turn to you now, because you outlined the technology and the business drivers that have got us to this tipping point. And you said that we're now at the point of no return. If the pieces are now all in place, what does the industry collectively need to do for Open RAN to really fulfill its potential?
Yes. So definitely the technology is ready, is here. We have come a very long way as an industry. And what I would say what we need to do now is two things. One, collaborate as an industry. What we have done, if you take, for example, what Wind River, Dell, and Intel have done, fantastic collaboration. We have invested in our own technologies, in our own roadmaps, and we also learned a lot in the last few years. So I would say those two things: collaborate with the entire ecosystem, and then number two, learn from the experience. Right? We have gone from proof of concept to lab trials to field trials to deployment at a scale. We know a lot by now. We know what works and what doesn't work. We know what we need to do first. We know what we shouldn't do. So let's share those learnings. Let's take those learnings and evolve the next steps. And again, I can't say enough about the collaboration between the three of us, Wind River, Dell, and Intel, how far we have come and how much we have accomplished so far, but also how much more plans we have for the future to accelerate and bring all the benefit that a software-defined network running on a server architecture will bring to the industry.
Thank you, Cristina. And this is a great example of the collaboration you've been discussing there that's needed. Paul, let me finally turn to you. You quite rightly there highlighted the work you've done with Starling X as being an important factor in reaching this Open RAN tipping point. But what further contribution can developers and the open source community make in order to support the development of Open RAN?
Thanks, Guy. Well, certainly we're in exciting times with all of the adoption that Cristina just summarized. One of the things I think that is really important here is that as we sit at this point in time with the mature Open RAN deployments and the adoption en masse of this technology, we're starting to finally see the realizations that were put in place as a thesis when Open RAN and virtualized RAN strategies were originally created. That being significant cost savings, more flexibility from a software-defined network, the ability to have competition, right, at every layer. If you look at the open source stack that's being used here, you have a hardware layer that Dell is here to talk about, that tight integration with the CAS layer that we have, the infrastructure that sits on top of the hardware that manages the virtualization of distributed cloud, and then the applications coming from the key vendors that provide radio access network functionality. And now that we've moved to an Open RAN disaggregated open source stack, that creates a new landscape where the service provider is in control of a competitive landscape. The hardware vendors, the infrastructure providers such as ourselves at Wind River, and the application vendors now have to continuously compete for their business for the life of the network. So there's really been a significant transformation in that. And as we move forward with Open RAN, the ability to now have flexibility in your choice between your core network assets and your edge network assets, having open interoperable APIs between them allows now competition to occur in an east-west manner as well. So we're starting to see a lot of those things come to bear. And then certainly a software-defined environment gives you a high level of flexibility, rapid time to market, and importantly, the ability to bring new applications and new revenue streams onto a virtualized platform. And as we look at the open source community, to your question, there's a lot of innovation and investment happening. I'd say that after the past couple of years that we're really focused on stabilizing the deployment and the core infrastructure that's used for Open RAN, we're now looking at high levels of automation. And as Cristina mentioned, bringing in artificial intelligence to automate the network. As you look at a disaggregated solution with tens of thousands of sites, it's almost impossible for a human being to manage that. So using advanced automation and AI is a real place of innovation in the open source community now. Additionally, we're seeing new applications such as cellular vehicle to infrastructure and bringing edge systems like industrial and medical and automotive as the connected devices in 5G that have applications that coexist with the O-RAN application at the edge of the network. So a tremendous amount of innovation possible and tied to new revenue streams for our service providers.